Notice the bikini?
Yes, that's all I saw. And then I was like, no, this is the one Councilor Narang was talking about. So I looked again to try to see that it was not.
So true.
Am I loud enough if I wear a mask?
Mm-hmm. You walked into that one.
Are we live yet? Because I want to fight him.
So we're live, but the microphones are not.
Boy, I've never seen such a tee-off before.
That was good, yeah.
Or, sorry, Mayor, and you just walked right into
Dave, you do realize she'd kick you under the table.
I can't kick him because of the COVID regulations, but as soon as those lift, it's coming.
Making a list.
My kick list. I know. But I have legitimately been like, we can't hear anybody talk. And they're like, especially councillors, these are she's really quiet. I'm like, I am so cool. Not a good thing. Not the last one, but like some of them before. I think that just the sound isn't fantastic because it just depends where the microphones are. I also think that I'm louder now that this exists because I actually forcing yourself to be because it like bounces it into the mic like a sound. I do have a tunnel. We actually have two.
It's 9 o'clock. I'll call the budget meeting back to order. I'm getting it. So we left off on the capital?
Yeah, we're gonna start.
Yeah, 10-year capital. Okay. So I'll turn that over to with you, finance team there.
So I'm going to present the capital. Betty will be here for all the things I missed.
Okay.
So we'll just briefly look at the 2021 capital. So that's on page 410 and 411 and 412. So we'll go in detail over each item. Each director will go in detail over that in a little bit. So we're going to skip over to the 10-year capital. On page 502. So when we're looking at our capital, the important things to note are that all the projects are funded except the bronze statue and the dressing.
Which we clarified yesterday, we're not funding.
And the dressing room expansion at the Christensen Center. So we used grants, debt, and reserves to fund everything. And in the years where we didn't know specific projects, but we knew that projects would likely happen, we put an estimated amount in, so that we could slot in the specific items when they come up. So on page 502, when we're looking at our 10-year funding summary, the projected revenues are just an annual snapshot of the revenues that are either transferred from operating into capital or the grants that we anticipate receiving. they don't factor in the use of reserves in that top portion. The middle portion is all of the capital expenditures that we are planning on expending with group by department.
Sorry, Nicole, excuse me, just one moment.
Nicole, just looking in when you're in the expenditures, you've got administration in 2025 budgeted for $5 million
Yeah.
from 50,000.
Yeah. So that is budgeted for the replacement of this building.
Oh, okay. Dean's wage was going way up.
This is capital, so Dean's fantastic, but we don't capitalize his wages.
We're making a bronze statue, then he's got
A very large $5 million bronze statue. And then in the bottom portion shows the use of reserves. So the surplus deficit is just the annual snapshot. So if we didn't have enough revenue in that year to cover our expenses, we will use reserves or debt to fund it. So that in the bottom portion is, you can see the reserve balances increasing and decreasing.
Mr. Phillips?
Just a question in regards to the projected revenues under county contributions for year 25, 26, 27, and 28. They dip quite dramatically. Is there a reason for that?
So they only contribute to specific projects. So in those years, we don't anticipate at this point that there'll be any of those specific projects.
Major projects, yeah.
I mean, come 5 years down the road, there might be something come up that we didn't foresee at this point. Oh, you go right ahead.
Sorry, I'm trying to be quiet, but that's difficult sometimes.
Me too.
A couple of key things that just to note is, one is the debentures. Those are where we've planned that if the project goes ahead, we would need to borrow. So 2021 is the airport, 2022 is the wastewater treatment, and then farther out there's potential for looking at a new town hall or civic building. So that's key, and it is addressed in the debt section. The other thing that when we're doing this kind of 10-year plan is that if you look out at the 2030, the bottom line under reserves, it shows 8.473 million. What that shows me is 10 years from now, you've kept the reserves at a healthy balance, because we're always looking to leave the town in as good a position as when, say, a council started. You don't want to overcommit and let a new incoming council have issues that they have to deal with immediately. So we've maintained a really healthy balance throughout. So to me, that's reassuring, because if you did have something really unusual happen, you've got the resources to deal with it. So those are the key things that I look at when we're doing a 10-year plan.
I just have a quick question about an RCMP building. Is that captured in here somewhere?
So in 2029, yeah.
Oh,
It's the
14 million?
debenture for the 10.
Oh, okay, yeah, thank you. Mr. Alderson, did you have?
Yeah, just along Councillor Ald's line of questioning, 2025 was the 5 million, and then what would be the 2029?
That's the RCMP building.
That's the RCMP building for in?
Sorry, I was looking at the wrong line. No, there's 5 in 2025 and 5 in 2029, both for the admin building.
Both for the admin?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, we don't have any cost estimates. We're just using our best guess.
Right. So the best guess would be that the new building would take place after those two amounts towards it. So it's not going to happen in between and then another 5 million put aside for something else. We're assuming that it's a $10 million
Yeah.
building? Okay.
If you go to page, is it 518, that lists all of the projects
Betty's saying if we go to page 518, you can see all of our 10-year capital. But that's not the, so it shows the 5 million for the Town Office Cultural Center in 2025 and in 2029.
So the 2025 is not saying that's when it's going to, that's not the estimated target date to start building?
No, we haven't done
anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're just saying, put it in there.
Yeah.
So we know we have the resources for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's coming.
Yeah.
At some point.
One of the issues with the town hall, and sorry, it was me that brought it up at the senior admin team, is this building is starting to exhibit. But we did have a study done.
2011.
2011. There's some health and safety issues with this. So part of what we've done for this year's budget, and you'll see when we get to the current year, we've set aside $50,000 to do an assessment on this building to see if there's repairs that could be done, or what's your best options. In 2011, and I read through the document, basically the health of this building was, I'd say, fair to poor. We've got asbestos issues. Staff have, it's not documented, but I mean, there's concerns with sinuses and health and issues like that. So I do think the life of this building is starting to impact the operation. It's very cold in the winter. So I think it's something that, I know town halls are not a popular option, but I do think for the health and well-being of the staff, that we need to look at it and at least look at what we can do to either remediate it or move it forward.
Okay. Councillor Fraser, and I think I had Councillor Alderson. Did you?
I was just going to say that there's a few of these buildings that are coming up in the next, I guess, 10 years or so. I'm wondering if we start working on a plan to look at what a multi-use building would look like. I know there's discussion with the library and discussion with the Lusapa Community Center and discussion of, there's lots of different stuff, and I think very similar to St. Albert Place, they have their council chambers in that building. That way it's not just the town hall, it's also giving something back to the community, and it's it being part of that central community building, which I also think is good. I don't know if we want to talk about that or...
So basically what we've done is put the placeholders in. Mm-hmm. We did have this in last year's budget. It was out past the 5-year mark, but we moved it forward just so that we know that if something does come of it, the debt financing is available. But there are concerns with this building. We have tape covering these things. Things like that. It's not, so I think it's more a health and welfare issue than anything. But yeah, a lot of places do look at multi-use buildings, and then they can be utilized for other functions as well, and that makes a lot of sense.
And multi-government, perhaps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, Councillor Alderson?
Yeah, I think we've definitely been aware of that. I think even past council was aware of that. I think that's a good idea to start thinking about that. My question was just around the placeholder. So this only goes up to 2030, which is ways out still. But does that mean that basically that $5 million placeholder would be every 4 years? Because it's in 2025, it's in 2029. Would it continue if this had continued?
No. Sorry, that was me. I left I think in last year's budget we had put 10 million in, so I just pulled 5 forward just to say it's an estimate. We don't really know what a building would cost, but so it was just a splitting. If the building was only 5, then that other 5 would disappear. But these pages, I don't think we want to go through them in great detail, but they do outline all the projects that all the directors have submitted for 10 years so that we can see. And this is our starting point each year, is we pull the next year forward and go, okay, this is what you said you need to do, how urgent is it? And then, you know, we do move projects back and forth between the years, so.
Thank you.
Councillor Phillips?
My comment was much along the lines of what Councillor Fraser brought up, just from a multi-use building of library, RCMP, fire hall, potentially First Nation involvement, multiple levels of government, just for that kind of a building as opposed to just a town hall building.
Other questions?
Okay, so are we all comfortable with the sort of 10-year?
Pretty good?
Yep.
So we will move on to page 527, which looks at our reserves. So like we've already said, this is the one-year snapshot of the reserves. So it just shows us that we went in.
Just past the
Sorry, it's
the
right
next
after
tab.
the divider.
The next tab.
Yeah. Like the second last page of the book.
Good to go.
So we just took our reserve balances that we opened with, we added in transfers to the reserves that we have this year. We took out any of the expenses we can, which planning on spending, and then added in interest, and we can see that at the end of the year that we still have some really good reserve balances, and then as well as some unrestricted reserves to use for anything that comes up.
So we are not broke.
No, we're not broke.
Just,
Maybe say,
just if the newspaper's looking for quotes. Just toss that out there.
so at the end of 2021, the projected reserve balance is 12.275 million.
I want to be broke like that.
Kind of broke I want to be.
And that doesn't include then the unrestricted.
That doesn't, there's another 2 million in the unrestricted.
Yeah,
First page after the last tab.
that's great. I love the way these reserves are broken out.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Makes sense, yeah.
Councillor Phillips?
Just a quick question for the unrestricted. Is that a comfortable amount? Is that a little high? I thought we talked about $1 million to $1.5 million unrestricted.
I know they've asked that. I think it's fine, you know. It's your operating surplus, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's fine. I mean, in all my years in municipal government, I don't know if I've ever had to access the operating surplus. I mean, we might with COVID, but so far we're doing pretty well. So yeah, it's really just, yeah, I think it's fine.
So, I mean, if we had a major break, water break, say, not funded, this is where it would come from.
Well, it could come out of the utility reserves as well. There's,
Right.
If there was a major catastrophe, you're going to be monitoring it right one-on-one and going to council for approval for funding, so we would access whatever monies we needed to, so.
yeah.
They're so clear.
I know.
I love it. To see this, yeah.
Sorry, we don't make any interest off the unrestricted amount? I just don't see an interest.
So the interest gets allocated to all of our restricted.
Okay, so it goes back into the, okay.
Yeah. So there's 135,000 in interest that we allocated to the.
This is great.
handy sheet to keep handy.
That's amazing, thank you.
I need a bigger blow-up page.
Sorry.
I'm struggling.
We printed it and then we're looking at it afterwards and we're like, that's really small. But it's just our debentures. It shows that we maintain our debt limit. We don't go over our debt limit, and we sort of tried to plan that when new borrowing would happen after old borrowing was paid off, so it wouldn't be huge spikes and valleys in our.
The medical clinic is done. 2024.
Look at that.
That's
Arena upgrade too.
One of the things we'll try to do when, especially moving forward in the budget, and sorry, there was a printing issue, somehow it made the font smaller, so we'll try to make it bigger, but the principal and interest payments, they're running around $1.2 million, and one of the things that I guess I've learned from experience is as debt falls off, is not to take that 1.2 million, that is our loan payment allocation, and to maintain it, because that way if the Christensen Center's paid off or something's paid off and you have new debt coming in, it just kind of steps into that allocation, and that way you're never caught short. Where I've seen where all of a sudden you have a big debenture that's say $5 million and all of a sudden you need to find $300,000 of payments because the payments have to come out of operating. So that's where municipalities get caught, is all of a sudden they need this money and it's either cut services or increase your taxes, which you don't want to do. So if you maintain that, and if you have a year where you don't need that money, put it in your reserves. And then you just, so it's just a really good idea to maintain that, because you see that typically every couple of years you will need to debenture things, just depending on the size. So I think it's a really good practice.
good, yeah. Sorry. Questions?
So we can start going through our individual capital projects.
Which page are you on to then?
So we are going to go backwards. We are on page 414. So back to the. So the first project that we have proposed is the council audio video equipment for in this room. So we estimated $20,000. The IT team is gathering information to see if that is reasonable or not, and to see what could be done within that budget and what would suit the space.
I guess you said they were looking into it. I was just curious if it's more of a sound. To me, when we're watching it back on YouTube or wherever, it's more of a sound quality's not a visual problem. But,
yeah, so they're exploring options, whether it be individual mics or...
Yes, the mics are factoring in heavily.
No, Councilor Fraser? No.
I guess whatever, and I'm assuming that the audiovisual team is doing this, not you guys, but I guess for me, whatever we put in here, I think should be portable and not hardwired into the building, especially if we're looking at perhaps moving to a different building. I'd hate to hardwire a bunch of stuff in and then have to rip it all out.
like the head mics?
Like Britney Spears.
That's exactly what I was thinking. How did you know?
I
I agree.
Sorry, I like the individual mic scenario, just that way each voice is being picked up. Some of us have lower voices, some of us have higher voices. That way you can pick up each one individually.
Okay, I think it's agreed. I mean, especially now, people are tuning in, and I think we need to make the quality as such that they can get the full benefit. Well, it is frustrating though, if you're trying to watch something, you can't hear it and you can't understand what's going on. So either we do it properly or not, so. I think this makes sense.
So on page 414, we have our bronze statue.
Four 416.
416.
Oh, sorry, I lied. Yeah, 416. Sorry. Yeah, and there's an indication that that wouldn't be a project unless specific funding was available.
I think there was some discussion to see if there was a grant to do it as a historical for this area, but I think, what was it?
Minimal.
$12,000 grant, so no.
So we can put an X on this?
Yeah.
Should we maybe say that a bit louder for the media as well? That was a no.
There is no grant, so there is no statue.
Okay, on page 418, we have the Patriot Cultural Center in Town Hall. Did you have anything to add about that?
No, we can speak to the 50,000.
So, like we previously mentioned, with the building showing its age and being nearing the end of the useful life, we should plan for something in the future. So we have budgeted $50,000 for next year to do a study on the building to see the best plan of action way forward.
I'm not sure how to phrase this. Like, so we're starting to budget for that. When would be a good idea? Like, if we start considering multi-use or other partners involved in it, that we start those discussions with those potential partners. Like, when does that occur? I guess that's more administrative, maybe more council, but I'm just curious.
I mean, that's a pretty broad.
Sorry.
And, so what we're anticipating for 2021 is just go back to the firm that did the assessment in 2011, and just reassess this building and provide recommendations to get us through a period of time, be it 5 years or 10 years. So I think that discussion for broader is a more in-depth discussion with council.
For sure.
Right? Because, I mean, sitting in the rec plan is a field house too, so, does that play into this or what?
And it could actually, that was part of the past future plans, was another addition would actually include potentially, that's what Hall would move as well. So that there's many possibilities.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot to consider. I mean, do you move your government away from your downtown core? Right. I mean, that's a philosophy question. Governments, you want to support your downtown, so keep your governance center in your downtown. Yeah. But that's a whole broader.
Sure, especially if you amalgamate where we could go.
So I think with this study, it's just, okay, let's reassess it, and what do we need to do, and then have that bigger discussion.
Yeah. So just to be clear, this 50,000 is for the study?
Yes, of this building. And I don't think it'll cost us 50,000, because we'll go back to the firm that did it in 2011 and kind of upgrade that report.
So they'll already have a bunch of background information.
Yeah.
There was another one done in my last council term.
In our term, I thought, when we first came.
It was I want to say 2016.
I know in 2017 we did air monitoring. stuff like that.
Because there was discussion about possibly moving over to Wild Rose School Division office,
Right.
right?
There was, yeah.
Yeah, and that was the last term. So, and now there was something brought to us at that point, and I don't quite remember. I know it was brought to us by the Director of Recreation at the time. So I don't know, maybe Mr. Ament, if you want to check your files and see if there's something over there.
Your Worship, if it was brought to council, we can just go through past agendas and find it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sharing office space, sharing IT, sharing.
Yes, that's
there's
what
a
it
lot of
was.
sharing and cost
Yeah.
sharing.
Yeah. And that was because of a study that was done on this building. So, unless they just brought the old study forward, but I thought there was somebody else that came in. Councillor Fraser?
Well, and I think when we have a better idea of what needs to happen and like the goals, I also think, I know the county is in need of a new building. It might make sense at that point to reach out to them and see what we can combine as far as IT goes, as far as, if we're heading that way anyways, even if we remain two separate municipalities, that might be a project that we can do together that I think would be beneficial to both.
Yeah. Councillor Alderson?
Yeah, I mean, not to go too far down rabbit holes, but that actually was a discussion once when there was the discussion of a joint development area, where there potentially could have been a joint municipal building out there. Though obviously that didn't happen, so those talks stopped. But.
There was also talks with some other organizations as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it seems to be occurring every 4 or 5 years, so I think it's definitely a good conversation to have once we get more of the study done, so.
On page 420, we have flagpoles for at the town office, where flagpoles set in cement at the front of the...
I can...
You can talk, I was going to say.
If council recalls, at the last service level, we talked about flagpoles, basically to, put up the Canadian flag. We're going to go to 4 poles. Where the existing pole is, we just don't have enough room because they have to be spaced apart for the flags. I mean, there's a standard for that. So in rethinking it, we're now at 5 flagpoles for the Canadian, Albertan, the towns, the Treaty 6, and the Métis. This is kind of where we got ourselves down to, because that's what's eventually coming into here. So to achieve that, and Mr. Shanks wants, I'm going to blame him, I know he's watching, he wants to take down the big spruce tree out front. It's pretty much hit its lifespan anyway, and then we would do the 5 flagpoles there, and then zero escape around the flagpoles, which we've actually applied to Fortis to see if we can get 5,000 for that. But that's the plan.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Councillor Alderson?
Just curious, does it allow for, and maybe it's too many, but too much. I know we have the Japanese flag here because we have Kamikawa Society. Is there ability to expand upon that if we wanted to add more for whatever reason in the future?
We should probably lay out for that now, if that's council's direction. Then we're looking at 6 flagpoles.
The possibility of, you never know, of amalgamation. Who knows how many flagpoles are needed in the future? So, I guess preparing for possible.
We could lay it out so that it can be expanded. Like we're probably looking at more of an arc in that corner.
Okay.
Councillor Fraser?
I know there was some discussion of reusing or repurposing the poles that are out in front of the Parks and Rec building. I don't know if that's a feasible option or if that would save us some money.
That was explored by Mr. Shanks. The problem is the difference in height and whatever. So it didn't, we're pretty much, it wasn't compatible, I guess. But those flagpoles are down where they are stored, so they can be used. elsewhere.
How does, I guess, the temporary flags work? So like the pride flag, how many poles do you need, or do you need an extra pole for special flags?
Your worship, I think I would rather go with an extra pole than versus lowering a flag to replace with another one, and that can be sensitive.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
Councilor Brown?
When we initially talked about the discussion, we were talking about 5 flagpoles. That was one of the reasons for that extra flag, was for the temporary celebrations.
So I'm just curious, it sounds like there might be some thought where we could have extra flagpoles, so maybe if we could look into the possible arc and see the cost difference between what's here and the additional flags.
Just quick, I think. So it's about 3,000 per flagpoles. Council wants 2 more, we would have to add 6,000 to this budget.
But what you just said, if we look at it, doing it as being able to expand on it in that arc, we don't have to do that now. We can just, if we design it so we can add them, we can do that down the road.
No, we could do it that way.
Yes.
Councillor Narang and then Councillor Phillips.
Okay. So just to clarify, this is for 5 flags. You identified that those 5 would be taken up. So should we be talking about adding that 6th one right now? So we do have the extra for the temporary celebrations, which would be 3,000, right?
Yes.
Councillor Phillips.
My preference right now would be to stick with 5. So it can be added on in the future, but I think 5 is probably sufficient for now.
Well, your worship, what we could do is do the 5 in the corner, keep this other one
Right.
without taking it down.
Sure,
And use
that's a
that
good
as
idea.
our...
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Alderson?
No, I think that covers it. I think that would be...
Yeah, no, because I was going to say, well, we may as well plan for 6 if we're talking about 6. But that makes sense, just to reuse.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Good.
So would that be 15,000 still?
Yes.
And we're
So-
applying for a grant.
And if an organization wants to come with their flag, then they supply the flag. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, good. Okay,
We could develop a policy on that.
sure. Okay, thanks. Councillor Alderson?
Not to, I don't want to spend too long on this, but because that does leave the possibility of special days, like you said, like, when we have the purple light day,
Yeah.
it could be a purple flag, because it's a very special day, and there's other days throughout the year that might be a possibility.
Yeah.
If somebody supplies a flag.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Like it.
Okay, so we're good with that?
Okay, we're just putting up on the screen because your descriptions are all the same for every project. So we're just projecting them on the screen so you can have the same information on that. Thank you.
So if there's a larger narrative, then at least it will come up.
Can we put which flags are being added so they know that it's for the Treaty 6? And then just so it doesn't just look like we're setting up new flagpoles for nothing? Like there's a reason that we're doing it? Sure.
Okay, so on page 422, we have the fire tender.
Do you want me to run through this?
Yes, please.
So the tender, so that's for the 10% deposit on the tender for Station 60 in 2021. And then the acquisition of the tender in 2022. The total cost was...
56.
That's 10%. So
560,000.
And sorry, when does that one come in?
The tender would arrive in Station 60 in 2022.
That's a truck.
Yeah, water truck, basically.
602.
Yeah. So these are the projects that we went through with council on fire.
Yeah.
So then going down the list. Sorry, I'm just going off the list on each page. But so the next two are command units. Then going down the self-contained breathing apparatus for Station 60. So that's a 3-year replacement project. So 2021 is the first year.
Sorry, Dean, can I go back to the command unit? It's 90,000?
Full price.
Yeah.
That's with all of its outfitting?
But I thought that, is that not a split cost?
Yes, so if you look, sorry, it's probably easier, I'm just going off this sheet on page 410.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and then you can actually see that split cost.
Okay, sounds
there.
good. Oh, there we go. Okay, I'm good.
Yeah, so it's 33,000 for the town.
Okay.
The next one down the list actually comes off.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Yeah, that one was not approved. So. Then actually the next, can I keep just going down this list?
Yeah.
Okay, so the AFAX radios, that's actually Mr. Schwader's. Did you want to speak on that?
Well, everyone, it's regarding the peace officers being able to communicate with local RCMP. For that, we budgeted for 2020, but of course, the pilot project that they did was not completed, but moving forward in 2021, we're hoping that we'll be able to communicate with RCMP.
Okay, that's good.
Sorry.
No, I can keep going. So the next one also is Mr. Schrader.
Yeah, e-ticketing, I explained that yesterday in regards to moving forward. Solgen and Providence is going to be going to e-ticketing in the fall of 2021. So we're just budgeting for the machines that would be required to process tickets roadside. And then the last one is the roadside screening, and that would be for if my CPOs are requested to do impaired driving on roadside, we'll have the equipment for that budgeted.
Questions?
I do have one question. Are those always bought new, like, the AFAX systems, or however you pronounce that? Do those ever cycle through the RCMP where they would sell those, like maybe we could get it at a lesser cost? Because maybe they replace those every 2 years, just, like, I don't know how they cycle through the budget.
And I can't comment on that, so I guess we can look into that as far as if there's refurbished radios out there that is on the market, or whether they say whether RCMP gets rid of them for a certain reason. I don't know, but we can investigate that as far as cost cutting.
Honestly, though, if they're going to be handing out tickets for impaired driving, to me, they need the proper...
No, sorry, I'm not talking about refurbished roadside screening, but perhaps, if the RCMP are going through new radios every couple of years, that might be something that's still in really good shape, and like, I certainly don't want any equipment that's not working by any means.
Yeah, I would think that there'd be a process.
I think this is a good addition. They need to be able to communicate with the RCMP on an immediate basis, not cell phones.
Next.
Okay, moving on to transportation. Do you want to go through this, Dean, or do you?
Yes. I will, and is watching, because last night we were going through his projects and he's supposed to text me if I don't get it right. So,
I'm trying to put up the explanations, so
okay.
I will make them bigger.
So, okay, so 52nd Street, 4,500. That's for the engineering cost for the construction completion certificate. So it's this road out here. So that'll be finalizing the project.
Okay. So there's no option there?
No. It's it's the end of the warranty period, so the engineers come out and do a final inspection and stuff, so that's those costs. 3210 is snow dump. This cost is for compensation for the impact to wetlands. So when we impact wetlands or get rid of or encroach onto wetlands, we have to compensate for that. So that's $61,800. He does have a comment to me that this can be pushed out for a few years, this one. So that's an option for council or to just deal with it now.
Councilor Lorraine?
Yeah, just curious, when we talk about impact to wetlands, what is that impact and what does $61,000 do to help that?
So the impact is that we're actually taking over wetland. Like we're removing it.
From where does the money go then? I'm assuming the provincial government.
Yeah, so you gotta either pay and they use that money to develop more wetlands,
Okay.
or we actually ourselves have to develop wetlands.
But that money does go towards. Okay.
Okay, Councilor Phillips?
I was going to ask that question, but the follow-up question I had is, or comment is, the 61.8 is coming out of money already sitting in MSI, it's not out of our reserves at this point?
Right.
Yeah.
Councilor Alderson?
I was just wondering, is that something that's automatic throughout any municipality, or is there a way to have a snow dump without impacting wetlands, so you're not having to transfer this money to the provincial government?
Your worship, it's just where our snow dumps are.
Okay.
You can see from the picture there, as we push out, we have taken over some wetland.
Right, we're kind of surrounded by them.
Yeah.
Alberta is pretty much a big
The province
wetland.
has a map of all identified wetlands. So if you impact any of those wetlands on those maps, that's where the compensation comes.
Dean, would it be possible to bring back a map just to show us at some further future date? Identifying our wetlands around our area?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Thank you. Councilor Lorraine?
And then as far as just follow-up from the provincial government, are they accountable for the wetland that for where they say they're spending the money? Is there a way that we can track that to say we encroached upon this and then we...
Your worship, I'm not overly, familiar with the program, but I'm like some of the money goes to Ducks Unlimited for them to develop wetlands or so.
Not that I don't trust.
Councilor Alderson?
You had mentioned it could be left in this budget or pushed off. Am I correct in assuming it's in this budget because we're feeling now would be the best time? Or is there, because the unknown, we know that there's costs coming potentially down on municipalities, is this the right time, or would it be better to push off for 1 or 2 years?
Your worship, I believe we just have it in here just to deal with the issue because it's an outstanding issue.
Oh, I see.
Let's see, for Snow Dump 3, the one below, that one cannot be pushed off. It's due according to this.
But if they're both left in here, it's still in a budget that is currently at 0% increase, so, there's lots of benefits to just keeping it here, I'm assuming. So, I guess, is it here because admin is suggesting this is the best time to have it in? Or are you still running, it's in, I think.
No, I think administration would prefer to deal with the issue.
We know we have to deal with it.
Yeah.
So I think have it in here.
Right.
My feeling is keep it in here.
Yeah.
Rather than push it out a few more years and have to deal with it. And you may have something else you have to deal with as well.
And the money used for it came from old leftover MSI money, so it's not like we have to come up with the money, it was there already from the MSI.
So am I hearing that we're keeping the, I'm saying yes?
Yes. Yeah, I think it would be prudent to get it out of the way.
Yeah.
Especially with the more coming up later.
Yeah.
So the next one, Your Worship, 3217, again, that's for engineering for the construction completion certificate on that project. So that's to finalize the project. And 322. This is for the design and tender. So it's just the design, so we always stay 1 year ahead in our design of future projects. He has a picture of it.
Yep. What page is that?
446.
Okay, thanks.
Zoom on the picture.
Hey there, let's figure out up there.
So it's a repaving project is what it is. So it'll be designed this year and tendered out.
Yep, good.
And so project 3230, that's 45th Street East frontage. So that's to repave the east side of the surface road and construct a walking trail. So just the walking trail portion of this project is $756,000. Just to let the council know, because that would be the option if you didn't want to do the full thing.
So, I mean, obviously they looked at the width of that road. By putting that the walking path, the sidewalk in there, that's not going to eliminate some of those big trucks being able to park on that road?
You know?
I mean, I'm
I know
sure-
Mr. Shanks has looked at that
Yeah.
and picked the side where it can go.
Okay.
We had a better picture here, but I don't see it.
Is the walking one along the boulevard? Is it on the east or the west side of the service road? East.
Yes, east.
Yeah, it's on the east side of the surface road.
East side?
Yeah.
Okay, so closest to the buildings.
Yeah.
There's more pictures. Oh, is there more pictures?
So is there the possibility then to then take up, so this, the portion that the walking path will take up, is there the possibility to widen that road farther into the west side of the ditch? I mean, right now, when some of those big loads are parked there, it's hard to get around,
Your Worship, I think we'd be on highway right away then.
right? But would highway give us that privilege to do that?
Your Worship, we would have to consult with them, but that would add cost to this project, so we would have to recost this project.
Okay.
I would think that would delay the project for 2021 start date. It would probably push it back, I would think, until all the approvals.
I'm sure they thought of that, but I just want to make sure that we aren't eliminating, because I know those trucks have to park somewhere. Councillor Old. Jeez.
So how far would that walking path, that sidewalk, go right from the one set of lights to the other set then?
Do we want to put Mr. Shanks on here? Can we talk or not?
I might be able to address that. I think it goes from the ATB, like as far as that three-way stop.
Oh.
All the way down. I think it's not gonna be, I wanna say it's gonna be a sidewalk, not a path.
Right.
I think it's gonna be narrower than our standard paths.
Okay.
So as far as taking up extra space, I think a sidewalk is narrower than our standard path.
Sure, okay.
So it'd go from ATB all the way down to the,
Sorry, Councillor.
you'd go all the way from the ATB all the way down to 47th Ave.
That's the way I understand, but I might be wrong with that, but that's the way I understood it.
I think you're correct, and he's not trying to...
Down to the car.
Okay, so, and then,
This is explanation that was put into.
and so then that's, then the town would pick up the servicing of that sidewalk then, correct? Or would some of the businesses?
Your worship, I think under our bylaw, it's in front of a business is required to.
Yeah, that was the intention of the business would be responsible for the sidewalks.
Okay. Okay.
And this will keep the people off of the roads. Right now, people have to walk on the road because there's nowhere else to walk on any of the streets.
I like it.
Okay.
Okay, next we have the airport terminal building. Do you want to discuss this with me?
Yeah, no, that's fine. I think we talked about it yesterday
Yeah.
in our plan, so I can just reiterate. So we're just entering the contract with the consultant. They're actually going to draft another option and put on and work on a public engagement package actually. So you can engage the stakeholders and our citizens because it's a tax-paid building. And we'll put it out there and then it can come back to council and county council for final decision.
And we'll move on to storm sewer.
Just to go back, just one more comment on this. The actual consulting is actually covered under a grant of $200,000. So that's an ACP grant that we got.
Okay.
So we'll move on to the storm sewer.
You want me to just keep going?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Like until you get to recreation, then we can get Wes.
That's a long ways down. So the annual CCTV of our storm system, we do that annually, just in different sections of town. It's basically just sending a camera down to see the health of the storm system in certain areas. Next one, I'm trying to find
Infiltration program.
I'm bringing up
Good looking pipes.
Okay, I know which one he's talking okay, we have this under storm, that's what's throwing me off, because it's actually sewer, I think. Or maybe not. So basically when it rains, the infiltration into our system overloads the system, and the pumps at the main lift station have a hard time to keep up, possibly allowing raw sewage to overflow out of the main lift and down into the infiltration out of the main lift, sorry. So infiltration into our sanitary system is a big issue for us. So in 2020, Mr. Shanks found some areas of major concern, and they would like to realign the barrels. So that's from the manholes down is the barrel where the water is coming in. So this is to line some of those to stop that infiltration of groundwater and rainwater into our sanitary system.
Any questions? It's necessary, so, not exciting, but it's necessary.
So, well, I know in some of the manholes and barrels in Creekside, you can actually like lift the lid and watch the water flow into it.
Wow. Okay, so
that's
definitely
sealing.
necessary.
Water meter replacement, as council recalled, that was actually a project scheduled for this year, which we pushed off a year because of COVID. And that's to replace the water meters in town hall to automatic reading. Water treatment plant pump rebuild. These are all kind of necessary projects, but I'm just trying to find which pump he's looking at. Does he have it up there? He has a picture up there. So. What page is it?
Well, I can read it. So there are 7 pumps, 4 at the water treatment plant and 3 are at the reservoir. The pump life cycles are about 10 to 15 years depending on hitting nicks, which is wear and tear in the impellers. 1 pump is budgeted to be replaced in 2020, so we sort of replace 1 a year to keep them in good shape.
Those are standard maintenance.
Yeah.
For a plant.
So the next is the water reservoir, or sorry, 62th Street to Highway 752, 47 to 49th Ave. This project is the one that was brought forward because of the MSP grant. So
that's replacing the old water main.
Yes.
Right. 752.
That'll start in the spring, I'm assuming?
Yes, it's actually being engineered now.
Okay. Do we have, I guess we'll get a schedule of all these projects and how, seems to be quite a few, and how are they gonna play out next year?
Sure. Yeah.
Does he have a priority? Which one will start first?
I think you'll probably try to get them all off the ground fairly early in the year.
Did we ask, has it been determined if, before they start the 752, mind you, we don't want to encourage all that traffic through Creekside, if 54th Street is done first?
Your worship, that timing would not work.
It would not work, okay.
Yeah, so it might be, if I recall in discussion with Mr. Shanks, it might at sometimes be 1 lane with traffic.
Right, okay, yes.
Going through there.
Okay.
But, I mean, because this is, this MSP, I mean, that's the money from the COVID deal. So we have timelines on that, so we can't push it off.
Okay. Better secure our contractors, because if everybody's getting these grants,
They have to be done.
the contractors are going to be in short supply.
So it is really our goal to get them out to tender early.
Okay, good. Okay.
So project 4107. This is phase 2 of the 2020 47th Street utility reconstruction that Northside Construction completed. Phase 2 is the north half starting at the alley north of 50th A Avenue and 51st Avenue. The project is a complete restore including water, storm sewer, and main lines, curb and gutter, sidewalks, and landscaping.
So we did the south half this year.
Okay. And it went pretty smooth, or?
Yeah, it actually did. Yeah.
Good.
project 4111. Is 49th Street and Edgerton Drive. And it's the water main design and tender. 4202 is the annual CCTV of the sanitary. So this is similar to the storm sewer. So they go in with the little camera robot to check things out and plan what needs to be done in the future. Just an annual.
How come we have that broken out? Just because it was the one up above.
So storm sewer and sanitary sewer.
Right, okay, thank you. Okay, yeah, we're good.
Next is the water treatment plant. Did you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, well, I think we discussed it yesterday on the council, in the plan there.
Any other questions about that?
It's required by the federal government, so I don't really have a lot of choice.
And the timing of the shell money is obviously off on this, so if we do get the shell money in 2024, then, I mean, that's a decision of council. It just replenishes the reserves we could use on, or using on this project for payment of the debenture going forward.
Okay, 4211, the Lagoon blower lock replacement. So the Lagoon blowers put air into each pond to help break down the material in the pond and before the water goes into the river. There are 3 blowers at the Lagoon and they are replaced on a 3-year cycle. So it's a yearly replacement at the water treatment plant. Or until the water treatment plant is built, sorry. So the Lagoon grinder replacement, the sewage receiving station grinder or muffin monster grinds up the material that the vac truck haulers bring into the station. There's 1 pump at the Lagoon and it's roughly 8 years old. The life cycle of the pump is 5 to 7 years depending on how harsh the material coming into the system is. And the last one under our utilities is the organics program bins. So it's putting for the bins for the solid or the organic waste collection.
Any questions?
Okay, now we're on to West and recreation.
All right.
Your Worship, I just want to go back. I mean, just looking at the Lagoon blower and the Lagoon grinder, these are capital. We could put a request forward to the county for 20% of this.
Okay.
But we have not yet, so.
Okay. It's 10:04. Do we want a 5-minute break? Okay. Oh, recess.
I was gonna say, that grinder is on
All right, and the mics are on.
Thank you. Turn it back to you.
Okay, I guess we're over to me in the recreation world, starting with project 7206, floor scrubber. The staff have identified the need for a new ride-on floor scrubber at the Christensen Center. The current machine that we have, my understanding was from 2013. It's spending more time needing repairs and being out of service than being able to use. So we do have a quote for a new machine and just shy of $25,000. So, and we're anticipating that with the new machine, under proper maintenance, it should last for at least 10 years.
Nobody wants to sponsor the floor scrubber like the
Zamboni.
Okay, 2207. We had that in there, but it was discussed at service level review, 100,000 for potential, engineering study of perhaps adding on dressing rooms to the north end of the arenas, the Christensen Center. I believe that council maybe had talked about not doing that project. It's not, more like I say, it's not funded at this point.
Discussion on that?
It has to get put on the back.
Councilor Fraser?
I guess, where are we at with the possibility of playing Tetris and moving things around to create more space? I know there was some discussion about the storage room being moved to where the old ice plant used to be, and that could possibly be, like, is there, I guess, without building, is there anything that can be done in that space to open it up for?
We're in the process of putting a large door in the old ice plant room. It will become a storage room. It's not really big enough to use as a dressing room.
Okay.
Councilor Alderson?
Yeah, what about, there's the child's play place right now. What if, is that big enough to be a dressing room and some sort of, something rolled out so that the players could get to the ice without wrecking the floor during game time?
It would, at this point, it doesn't have the shower capabilities or washroom capabilities there. There would have to be some further work done to remodel that area to allow for those types of things. It can be just I guess, could be repurposed into
because there's plumbing nearby, being that the bathrooms are on the other side of the wall to that.
Yes, and there's a sink. There's a sink in there. We would have to look at if you want to add a toilet or a shower or something like that. That's
Could that
always
be-
a possibility.
Could it be used as a referee room? Because wasn't there discussion on that, or?
I can kind of elaborate on that a little bit. The biggest problem with the referees room is there's one room and you have adult referees, child, male and female referees all changing in the same room at the same time, and it creates a very, they're all changing in the same room at the same time.
No.
That's common in arenas all over the place. You've got one referee room, and the challenge is, I think, as things have progressed, I spent 38 years as a referee, and it's one of those things you accommodate that, but I think the way society's going now, there's even more restrictions on those things. We've accommodated, we haven't had a whole lot of games this year, but our plan was one of the female change rooms could be that room for the young or the female referees.
Councillor Narang?
I'm just going to say, I mean, up until the last 5 or 10 years, all of these things were designed for men and boys. And so now, moving forward, girls are an absolute afterthought in all of this because they're needing to be retrofitted or stuffed into what used to be storage rooms and whatnot. So it is a huge issue. And I know even with the junior Bs, it's still all boys, but it's men and youth changing together in very close quarters. Like, we do have an issue there for sure that needs to be addressed. I don't know how, but I just wanted to highlight that fact that especially female athletes are definitely 100% an afterthought in all the design of all these new, right? And it's sadly even ours is new compared to a lot of other ones, and it's still the same thing.
Okay, I had Councillor Fraser, then Councillor Brown. Councillor Phillips.
I know that the subway room had been used for the football team. I'm wondering, I know there's not a shower or washroom facilities, but there are washrooms nearby. If that child minding room, if they could put down that rubber matting even, and it would be a change space. I don't know whether that would work because there's a window there.
Discussions with our staff on the child play space, it does get used. It's just we don't have a babysitting or child minding service anymore, but the space does get used and is used by young families and people that are supervised come in and use it. If there's we've had a birthday party in there before their most recent closure. We've had somebody will book the subway room, but then also book the play space for the kids to play in.
Councillor Brown?
I was going to provide some context to Councillor Narang's concern, but it's history and so my comment really has no value to going forward, so let's withdraw it.
Okay. Councillor Phillips?
Just forward or onto Councillor Narang's comments, there are a lot more female hockey players, a lot more female coaches, a lot more female referees. I know Hockey Alberta has made it very, very clear to the officiating people that they are not to dress adults and kids in the same room. However, when there's only one room, there's no choice. You have to exit and come in and make sure that it just doesn't happen, but it's by far not very safe.
Well, this brings up a whole issue. So how do we move forward on this?
We do have, again, it's going to take some money looking into, but there is the possibility of changing at least that one room, the kids' playroom, into something.
Yeah.
Because it is big enough for something, that even if it's a small change room.
Yes. Yes, Councillor Fraser?
What about the FCSS boardroom? Now that it's probably not big enough. But I'm just thinking of larger spaces that already exist.
They're on the wrong level.
They're upstairs.
It's upstairs, it's not.
But for the child minding place, could that go up there?
Not even used that much. Does it need one if it hasn't been used? Like if it does, I suppose it could go upstairs, but then it's not really where the parents are watching hockey or whatever else.
Yeah, I don't know how complicated putting skates on is, but I wasn't sure if it was the nudity that was the issue, I'm just wondering if there's a room where they can go and change and then carry their skates, but I don't know.
Councillor Narang?
Yeah, even in that scenario, I hate thinking of sending the girls way far away to the other end of the building on the top floor, and you guys go up there and then come back down and put your skates on. Like that, I just have an issue with. But I wonder if there is some sort of, because the world has changed so much, say over the past 20 years, there's got to be some sort of grants available for doing these types of assessment of how we can be more inclusive in our buildings, in our infrastructure. I wonder if there are grants available around those types of issues, like even federally, like we have those different ministries that have been set up around the status of women, that sort of thing. There might be something available where we can at least do a study of our building and what can we do to make this building work better for everybody.
None comes to mind, but we haven't really searched those out either, though, so I mean, we can take them up. I don't think, the playroom or anything, that's not a solution.
I don't think so
No,
either.
it's a temporary.
Yes, a Band-Aid
fix,
for
so-
sure.
Sorry, I don't mean to keep it a playroom. Why can't it be a permanent fix for the younger refs if it's made into a proper room, and during game time there would be something rolled out so they could walk skates to the ice. It's not like it's that far. It's right across from the ice.
Well, in one.
Sorry, you're right. It's right across from one ice. You're right. Yeah.
And I think it would pose a bit of a safety concern, just because there's smaller kids running around and like big giant men on skates and.
Well, and kids
Tiny
will
toes.
walk off the mat. I mean, that's going to happen. I guarantee you.
Right.
You'll end up with a cut floor that you're gonna have to replace as well, which now we're talking a couple $100,000. So.
Because I know, like, at the discussion of the service level review, really was accommodation for the junior Bs, right? And I think the decision at the service level was, let's them explore a temporary building on the exterior until future plans can be made.
Yeah, I have met with Ryan from the junior Bs after service level and had those discussions with him.
Councillor Brown?
Yeah, I think if we're going to do anything in this regard, I think it needs to be purpose-built, not an afterthought.
Yes.
I mean, it's anything that's afterthought is going to end up costing us more down the road. So
That's true.
purpose-built.
100% agree.
Yeah, and I'm not so much specific to one group, right? It should be for the building.
And the building should serve the community, and right now it only serves a portion of it, right? So.
Councillor Alderson?
Yeah, I mean, I think something definitely needs to be purpose-built, but how do you deal with that particular issue at the moment then, so that it can be resolved sooner than later? I think there does need to be a temporary fix, and when we were talking about those other outer buildings for Junior B, we were only considering that at the time, and we still felt like that's important, but there's only so much within budget or time frame. But now there's a whole new other issue that we're talking about. It's not just about Junior B. It's about not having adults and children dressing in the same change room, which right now is happening.
Yeah.
And that change room size is literally the size of this council.
Councillor Narang?
I just want to say, and I feel like maybe I wasn't vocal enough about it the last time that we had this conversation, I did bring this issue up then as well. So I'm glad that it's sort of, the uptake is a bit, maybe I just wasn't noisy enough about it last time, but yeah, it probably should have been discussed a little bit more at service level because it has been identified.
So, moving forward. Councillor Narang?
So we have this money that we put in the budget, like in the capital plan. I would like to see administration maybe research some grants around assessing buildings. I don't know if they exist. And then maybe getting some sort of study done about how we can move forward. Because I don't even know if that was addressed in the rec master plan.
Right.
The diversifying of users.
It wasn't.
No.
No, from reading through the rec master plan, it identifies sort of as part of phase 2 or development in the field house side of things, but it doesn't speak a lot to the redevelopment or doing anything with the existing spaces that we have and how you might accommodate, again, the diversity that we're seeing, with the females and youth and adults all sort of sharing spaces.
Councillor Alderson?
I mean, not that that's an uncommon thing, depending on the scenario. I mean, you go to the aquatic center and adults and children are changing in the same room. It's just, obviously it's usually split by gender, men's room, ladies' room. There's a family room, but not everybody's changing necessarily in front of each other. There's closed, there's locked doors and stuff. But yeah, the sooner we can look into this, the better.
Councillor Ald?
This might not be a popular idea, but we've got $50,000 that we're gonna do a study on this building. Maybe we take that money and put this off another year and put that into the arena. Having a study done to figure out what to change. Maybe that's more of a priority than this one, which is gonna be a 10-year down the road anyway.
Plus, we don't need a study to tell us that this building needs to be replaced. We can spend $50,000 or $0 and know that it still needs to be replaced sooner than later.
No, for this building here, I think the immediate concern is are there health issues?
Yeah.
So to me, this also needs to be looked at,
But we know there's issues
Yeah, that's,
here.
we know it.
but they will come with recommendations on how, if it can be fixed. Or do we need to, like what the study proves? Is this,
I'd like to see both go.
yeah, I definitely would as well. I don't want to swap out this one for,
One issue isn't more important than the
Yeah,
other.
they're two separate
Yeah.
issues, and
They're both very important
and
issues,
both
it's just different.
exactly.
So depending on the scope of the engineering, here's the options of what we currently have, what we can do, but here's, the options of, and giving cost estimates as to what it would take if we were to consider expansion of the arena in the future.
Councillor Alderson?
I'm just wondering, it doesn't sound like, there's money put aside for doing the study of this building, but not necessarily anybody who's actually locked in to do that right now. Maybe there could be some money saved by having them, maybe it's the same company that can do study of both at the same time, potentially have some cost savings. Maybe not, I don't know enough about that stuff.
Mr. Krause, you have something to say?
I don't know, Your Worship. I think, maybe a step back and a rethink. Maybe the temporary solution is temporary buildings on the outside of the building to accommodate. I mean, because, just going in there and you're looking at the age of the arenas themselves, how much life do they have left? So are we, maybe a broader overall look at the structure?
Yeah, Councillor Fraser?
I know that we were discussing a multi-use building. If we do use, I'm wondering if that's, if the same firm looks at both spaces, they might be able to say, okay, this makes sense here, this makes sense here, this is how you're gonna need to add, because I know the arena has phases and Lusopit has phases. So I'm wondering if they can look at those phases and the life of this building and what we need and what, if it was a holistic picture, maybe they could give us some options moving forward. Maybe it's one building, maybe it's three, but at least they know of all our future needs and if they can fit together. That makes sense. Probably not.
Councillor Phillips?
Just going back to Dean's suggestion on like a portable solution, I mean, that solution will not only ice users, but it'll also benefit the football and soccer users as well, because those buildings could be designed to access from inside and outside. So in the winter it gets used for the arena, and in the summer it gets used for the football and soccer fields.
And my head's squarely in that court as well. They're purpose-built, but they're still only temporary initiatives until we can get something, more realistic in place.
So the $100,000.
Yeah, and Your Worship, that's not funded.
Right.
Right. Mr. Phillips?
It's not funded from the town side. Was it funded from the county side at all, or neither? Just to be clear.
Well, this hasn't been presented to the county.
So then would direction just be to
Research.
Yeah, research and come back with options for potential funding for how that's going to, because we obviously can't decide on our own right now.
Councillor Fraser?
Well, and if the decision for temporary buildings is there, I'm not sure whether it would be $100,000 if we're renting temporary buildings until we have a more permanent plan. I don't think it would be, no, I don't know that, that's.
Your Worship, I think I'd take a step back, let us research it and bring a report back to council.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good. I mean, we've identified a few different issues here today, so.
Yeah.
Okay. Is everybody good with that? Councillor Phillips?
And I think that's a great idea. Do we want to allocate the $50,000 in the budget right now, so it's there? Or do we want to wait till that report comes and then allocate?
I think I'd rather wait to see the report, but I don't know, what does everybody else think?
That makes sense.
I'd like to see the report.
Because council can always amend the budget once the report is done, because it will take some time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that works for me.
Okay. Everybody's clear on that then? And okay with it? Yeah. Okay.
Okay. The next project on my list here is 7212, the recreation software. We did talk a little bit about that in our operating discussion yesterday. The recreation software, Max Galaxy, will no longer be supported by Microsoft Silverlight as of September 2021. We're looking at options right now. We've had a couple of different demonstrations from different software providers. One being ActiveNet, which is the company that bought out Max Galaxy, Maximum Solutions. And the other, that we've looked at is a product called Perfect Mind. Either way, we're looking at making a decision, and there's going to be a cost of implementation, data migration, setting up the new program will be a one-time capital cost, and then we'll move forward. We have it in our operating budget to do the annual licensing for those.
So what is going to be in that? Like, what will that software be able to do?
Well, it'll deal with facility bookings, memberships, program registrations. We talked a little bit about, the ability to do campground reservations, those types of things. It will have hopefully an online component so people can log in online and register and pay for a class without actually having to come in. When we're talking, one of the biggest challenges is the recreation software having the ability to communicate with our Diamond municipal accounting software. And so that's often a challenge. We don't right now have the ability for somebody to log in and pay with a credit card online. We're having to come in and make those. So the software out there has those capabilities. It's just a matter of deciding what works, what system works well and meets our needs from all the current things that we are booking.
So that would book the ability, you could book the community center then on this software?
Yeah, well, you can set it up like basically here's the calendar of availability. Some things we can set up like from a swim lessons, you go ahead, here's the maximum number, here's the minimum number we need, you can register for a class and pay for it. A facility booking, we can set it up that you can request a booking and then we would go in and approve it or not. So again, it avoids people double booking. We still have that ability within the staffing level to yay or nay to a booking request. And so we have the ability in the new rec software systems that are out there is to allow different accessibility to the public, have a front end, a user face where they can see what's available, what's not, what they can book online.
So I'm just curious to know, do you know if the county has an online booking system for, say, their community halls?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Your worship, I don't believe so, because each community hall is run by their own association.
I don't know, I think it would be good for this area, for people that are coming here to book for, say, family reunions or whatever, to know what there is available.
Yeah.
To know, so say they don't need the community center, the size of that, but they could utilize a smaller hall in the county. I've always thought that we really need to get on board and promote some of the smaller halls as well. It just gives people options. So if they don't have one, I guess then there's no point in researching. I just want to make sure that if they did have something that the systems could talk and be able to interchange bookings if possible.
Yeah, I think the challenge of that, what I can see from that is two municipal software, they have their accounting system, we have our accounting system, and how it's all integrated.
But they are on Diamond as well, right?
Yeah, we wouldn't be able to, I don't know if we could feed two systems, that's, I think, the issue.
Okay. Councillor Fraser?
I guess, could we ask if there are halls that they would want on the list? And so people could book the halls and we could remit quarterly? Just so their halls, so all the halls that are available in the area are on there. We have a joint rec agreement, so I don't see why we wouldn't have all of the options there for people. Would that work, or is that too much extra?
I think typically it'll take staff resources, who's going to be responsible. Right now, even within our department, the guest services handles all of the bookings inside the Christensen Center, and then my assistant, she looks after the loose soffit, sports fields, all those, the North Saskatchewan Park. So it's a big job, you could have one person full-time looking after strictly doing reservations.
I have Councillor Brown and then Mr. Schrader.
Yeah, and this initiative has been tried in the past. The best that was able to be accomplished was we'd have contact information for each of the different halls, but because the people that are in charge of those halls aren't full-time employees in anyone, they're people that have other endeavors going on in their life, getting a hold of them when you needed information was a big challenge, and in the end it got dropped because it wasn't proving worthwhile. We weren't getting the requests as well to use a smaller hall if it wasn't in town.
Okay, so maybe I guess at best just provide the information for the halls, the other ones. Mr. Schrader?
I was going to comment on Clearwater County, they do have a section for community halls which lists all the halls and the contacts on their website.
Okay. Maybe we just put that on our...
I have a link.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, okay. So what am I hearing about the recreation software then, everybody?
I think it needs to go.
Okay.
Yeah, it's being phased out anyway. We need to make the change.
It's software, it's never going to last.
Okay, 7307.
Okay, this is sort of follow-up from our ongoing improvements to the aquatic center. We've done the CHP units and boilers. It's been identified that the HVAC systems at the aquatic center are original to the building. They are nearing the end of their life cycle. The $7,500 we have put in the budget. We have a quote from the engineering firm that worked with us on the CHP units to do the assessment of the HVAC systems and provide us with some costing for what would be the replacement. We have a placeholder for next year, or 2022, for perhaps the replacement. But having that assessment done and being in touch with the folks at the MCC AC office, this would possibly qualify under that program to have the assessment done, and then as well as helping to fund the replacement itself. We had a cap in our community for the MCCAC funding of about $750,000. We received $530 when we did the CHP, so there's a balance sort of stating labeled for Rocky Mountain House, so we can use that funding to assist us with further upgrades and energy efficient types of things.
Council's wishes there. Okay. 7604.
7604, the spray park. As we're all aware that it's ready to go, ready for operations. The next phase I would like to recommend is putting up some stage structures, benches, picnic tables in and around the area. Just estimating about $50,000 to have that done. The project, just waiting on the last couple of invoices, but it will probably come in about $180,000 under the budget, the existing projects. But we'll still need to do further improvements now.
Is that something that we can add to our memorial bench program?
We do already. We've had one inquiry from somebody asking to put a memorial bench there, and we've steered them in that direction. So that could be part of that project. Some of the larger shade structures will be a little bit more money.
So you're talking shade structures as well for this?
Yes, yeah. From experience in my previous municipality, when they built their spray park, they didn't include the shade structures. People were maneuvering themselves around the building to find the shade, so.
Comments on that? Councilor Alderson?
No, I mean, that's certainly, I think we do need to consider that. Benches, trees, shade, all that stuff. Is that stuff typical before, like, having a proper, because we're still talking about, like, having a change room that would be good for that, would be good for the football field. Is this a greater importance before that kind of stuff? Because we need money for that too.
I think, I can't speak for council, but I don't know the change room right now, adding on to that existing. The building is plumbed in for possible washrooms in the future. My plan from that operations is just to do portables for now. And then we can address and see how that need is addressed. But I know that people will be scrambling for finding shade on those hot days while their kids are in the water.
Councilor Phillips?
Just a quick question in regards to the under budget. We're under budget on the project. Where is that money going to go?
Maybe Betty can help me back with that.
Back into the reserve. Typically we would try to use up all of any grant fundings and matching, etc. So if there is any funding, I mean, we'd have to look at, because there's multiple sources for that, but if the town contributed more than, say, our share, then we would put it back into the reserves.
Is there a possibility of that money staying in a reserve for future washroom facilities at this site? Is that
up to us?
I mean, we could. I'd be tempted just to roll it back in to a general, one of our reserves, and then if that came forward, reference that, there was money put back in instead of trying to earmark it. And just bring it forward to a new budget.
Okay, let's count. What it would be?
I think it should stay in. I think that it's an unfinished project without the shade.
We have an aquatics park there already, so we need to make sure it's used now.
Yeah, and completed.
I agree.
Moms will want to sit at a picnic table while their kids are in the splash park. That makes sense.
And dads.
And dads. Yeah, dads, yeah.
Or the kids can sit at the picnic table.
And grandmas.
And grandmas.
And grandmas.
Thank you.
Sorry. Okay,
Yeah.
so we're good with that? Okay, Arrowhead Park.
The next three on the list are projects from Rob, so I don't have the descriptors.
I'll read them out. So the Arrowhead Park is a diamond in the rough behind homes on 54th Street north of 61st Ave. The park needs tree removal, new playground equipment, and this is in order to meet CSA standards. There's a picnic area there with a quiet atmosphere. So this is budgeted to bring the park up to CSA standards.
Not after today, it's not a quiet spot. People are going to be seeking it.
I feel like council needs a tour of all the parks in town.
Yeah.
There's 28 of
I'm
them.
trying to picture it.
It's north of State Mat School,
Oh, okay.
behind the houses in there.
It's behind the houses across the street from you.
Yeah, right.
Oh, okay.
It's not publicly, you can't view or see it from the road.
No.
You actually have to walk into it.
Oh, neat. Okay.
Okay. Well, I mean, if it's not meeting standards. Okay.
Oh, can I ask a question just about the parks? I wish Bob was here, but somebody else can answer it. The playground in Centennial Park, is that included in our regular playground replacement, or because it's the campground, is it separate?
Your worship, no, Mr. Shanks would have it in a rotation of park replacement.
It is though.
Yeah, that one's
It's pretty
a
bad.
little weak.
Okay. Riverside, what about Arrowhead Park then? What are we saying?
Have to.
Okay. Riverside Park.
So this is for park amenities and enhancements.
He didn't give me cheat notes on this one. So I'm not sure exactly what he's envisioning there, but
Okay.
It's a pretty lame park.
it is.
Yeah, it is. And you know, this year with the staycations, I think next year is going to be the same.
Yeah.
I think we just need to really advertise our parks and the potential of them.
Invest in them.
And invest in them, yeah. Maintain them, which we are. Which we always.
Well, that's everybody's comments is they need to have the green places to go. They need to be able to go and enjoy the outdoors with it. So I think it's
Yeah.
important.
Okay, then we have trail development, 7620. Based on the recreation master plan, there was some engineering work to install a walking trail along Highway 11 to the south of 52nd Ave. This trail will allow pedestrians safe travel from 52nd Ave to South 42nd Ave by the Chevy dealership. There are many obstacles on both sides of the highway, so we are suggesting to put in a sidewalk, whether it be a 2.5 meter walking trail width or 1.5 meter wide standard sidewalk width. We're recommending the walkway on the east side of the service road, on the east side of the curb between the road and the businesses on the town property.
So would it cross the bridge then too? Is that? You know?
No. I do have a drawing here. Can I email this to get it up on the screen?
If you email it to me, I can bring it up.
Was that last year, Miss Button, that we had the little mayor for the day? Then she identified that there was a lack of proper walking for people around Dairy Queen area and toward Co-op, so.
That's right. It was 2 years ago, actually.
2 years ago.
I saw last year's one at the pool last night, and so I was remembering, but the one with the walking trail, that was the year prior.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you send it?
It is on its way. I know I just got an email from Mr. Shanks too, so.
So he is watching. It's going along.
So whatever we said about Riverside Park, his response is yes.
That it's lame.
That's all that needs to be said about
It's
that.
not, yes, you asked a question?
Okay, so this is
So the trail that goes to Edwards Garage, then towards the Bottle Depot Road across to Creekside.
That is awesome.
Okay.
Across the creek, I can handle that.
is this the map you?
Nice.
Yes, that's,
It's like walking through marsh.
Or walking on the road again.
Well, and that'll connect the businesses that are in that area, like the Boston Pizza, Tim Hortons, like all that. Because I've walked to Boston Pizza and it is a little scary.
It's
The road
dicey.
actually goes through that way.
Yeah.
Go trail will work for that.
That work?
So we're,
Oh, there's Arrowhead Park.
right.
And it's down in there.
Okay.
Oh, I know. They call it 54th Street Park.
Now you can call it
There's a
Arrowhead.
different one.
So the trail development, what do we,
Yes.
okay. I love the trail in our town.
Me too.
It's a highlight and I think we need to promote it more.
Especially
works if it does cross the bridge.
It does, that's all. That's even.
And will this connect to the rest of the trail
We're
system?
connecting to,
Or
that part of
is
the
it
community.
just a standalone piece?
To the rest of the community, the road, so
Yeah,
it's tying
Just be a
into the-
sidewalk.
Yeah,
Well, that part of the trail going over the bridge is about 20 years
Oh,
overdue.
yeah.
The more people can walk, the better.
And we've asked Alberta Transportation to help us on that, but I guess we're on our own.
Keep plugging.
Nice and smooth for longboarding moms too. And grandparents.
Okay, so yes to the trail development.
That's exciting.
The NSRP infield upgrades,
Okay, so this is the improvements to the VIP boxes in the infield of the North Saskatchewan River Park. It was identified originally as one of the items in the original North Saskatchewan River Park project. It did not get done. We've had a building inspector go in and have a look at the structure. He recommended that we have an engineering study done before we do any work. So this would encompass having an structural engineer go in and have a look to determine the scope of the work. Some of the work just had to do with bringing it up to fire code. There's the possibility of running power from outside and connecting the VIP box with power as well. And so we've earmarked about $70,000 to have that work done.
was there money left over from the grant dollars or the project dollars down there?
After all the legal fees.
Yes. Probably about 1,000.
48? So could we not put that towards this as well? So would 48 on top of 70 or?
Speaking out of turn.
No, I think so. The last thing that we did was we connected power from the main transformer to the grandstand. We had put in the lighting, but we hadn't connected the power, so that has been done. So the grandstand fully has power there. There's a junction box to the other well site just outside of Chief Charlie's, that area. So that power's been done. So the next step would be taking it into the infield and potentially connecting it to that. Because I believe right now they're connecting generators to operate the power in that VIP box inside. But yeah, the project is done, and it could be.
But there wasn't anything earmarked for there was some surplus funds. There wasn't anything earmarked for those
No, not at
dollars.
this point, unless it gets rolled over into this project.
So yeah, instead of taking the money out of reserve, we could use the remaining funds.
Oh, I would say.
Definitely.
Your Worship, I think probably the best step would be to get the engineer in there to assess the building, and we could take it out of this year's funds
Okay.
and initiate it now. And then that would give us a clear picture of what needs to be done there.
Yeah, for sure. Okay.
The
Councillor
big
Grant.
challenge, sorry,
Okay.
Mayor, the big challenge is going to be the timing, getting this done. If we can have it done prior to the rodeo event in early June, or somewhere between that event and the next major event, the Chuck Wagon event. It's, you know, a lot of it is having access.
Okay, Councillor Narang?
Yeah, I just want to say, I do see value in updating and upgrading that building. I mean, I've worked in it, and it's basically like a tree house built by 10 years is what it feels like now. It's a little scary, but if we are looking at making that an event space, that one building alone, I see it as being valuable to other user groups, not just the ones that have been using it so far. So I think it's important that, again, like the shade of the spray park, just finish the project.
Yeah, Your Worship, and I guess your comment is what got me concerned. It's a treehouse built by kids, so when we bring...
It's not, I'm just comparing what it's being in there, I'm sorry.
in there, and it's not, you know, if the foundation wasn't structurally, you know, engineered, designed, or structural safe, then we're looking at that totally different.
Correct, yeah. And it does feel a little scary in there, to be very blunt. Like, it is old.
So the volunteers that built that, I guess they would know the age and all of that, so get an engineering company in there and determine what actually needs to be done. And is that building, can that be moved to the grandstand, like up there, like, or not? Like what they do in that building, because I don't know what they do in that building. So if what they do in that building, rather than replacing it, would it be better to move that to where the grandstands are, in the center?
The skyboxes.
Skyboxes, yeah.
Because the one, I mean, if need be, the way when we were touring it looked like there was the announcer's box, and the view is that they could potentially announce from there, not be on the infield doing that. They could do it from there. If temporarily or permanently something needed to be rebuilt there, depending on what engineering said, I think it's still doable. So things can still go on.
Yeah, maybe we could have some conversations as well with the user groups and just find out if that would be a suitable option. Yeah, go ahead.
Both the groups have looked at the judging booths. There's 7 suites up there. The middle one is designated as the judges stand. And so both the rodeo group and the Chuck Wagons have looked at that space. And so it's a matter, I would envision that it would take over their judging, but some of the rodeo stock events, having the judges right above there, I can't speak to, being on the other side or how they utilize that space.
Okay, so I'm hearing that we get the engineering done first to find out, and then we have that bigger discussion with the user groups as well, get their input. Councillor Narang?
I just have a question about that. Like, if we are thinking that it does need engineering, or even just an assessment for safety, should we not be using it until we're for sure?
Yeah, and that's where we want to go.
Okay.
Yeah, and if council, from what I'm hearing from council, is we could utilize the remaining funds in the 2020 budget to do that, so we can actually initiate that quickly.
Okay.
Because we would never let people sit in grandstands that we thought might be unsafe, so we shouldn't have any announcers or anybody in that building either.
VIPs.
Getting an engineer in there is not really an option because it's been identified by the building inspector that needs to be done, so we can't ignore it.
Okay, perfect. So then, I'm confused now with this 70,000. Are we leaving this in, or what would this be used for then? If we're going to use the remainder from the 2020 budget for the engineering, what do we need the 70,000 for then?
Your Worship, I would suggest we take it out of the budget, and if we need, after the engineering report, we can always come back to council and provide you with better dollar figures and stuff like that.
I would be, that would be my preference, because right now we're just guesstimating at what needs to be done, and then we can have those bigger conversations as well with the user groups and find out all the options. So then we're taking that out for now? Okay. But just so everybody knows, it's not that we're abandoning the project, we're just looking at
We just need to get the engineering done first,
That was a project that I had intended presenting to the county as a cost share as well.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Project 7628, the Infield dirt upgrades. We have both operations and myself have met with both the rodeo and Chuck Wagon Association, determine what their needs are and sort of in order to make that infield safe for all their users. There is some work that needs to get done. So we've earmarked $50,000 to have that work done early in the spring prior to the first rodeo event.
And that's just bringing it up to a standard, right?
Yes.
The standard they've agreed on, and we've agreed to get it to that standard.
Yes, and then they would be responsible according to their agreements to actually bring it to what they need it to be. You know, there's differences between the rodeo and the chuck wagon events, but we would get it to that standard.
Councillor Alderson?
Once it's achieved that standard, like, you know, if it's roughly 50,000 to bring it up to that standard, how often does that kind of money need to be put into it to maintain that standard?
I think that's probably where it'll come on getting that done as part of an operational budget. So here's what it would look like to do annual maintenance to the infield.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Alderson.
If I remember the discussions before, they knew it was going to be a significant cost the first time.
Yeah.
But moving forward, it was supposed to be quite reduced for an extended period of time.
It may be like any other facility. Every 5 to 10 years, you might have to do some major work to it to bring it up or re-bring it up to that standard, depending on the conditions. If you maintain it, my understanding is, again, the cost going forward on an annual basis should not be that much.
Councillor Moran?
Just curious, was it not up to a certain standard already because they've been having rodeos and that out there? Or did something happen that it now needs $50,000?
I'm too new to the area to really understand that, but I know this was identified by RASA that, you know, was work that they had perhaps planned to do themselves, but...
Okay.
They did say that the meeting that we had, that they knew it was going to take $40,000, $50,000 to get it up to. They knew it was.
I do remember that. I was just, I guess, more curious as to if it was scheduled maintenance, or yeah. I do remember that conversation. I'm just curious to when it was done last to get it up to
10 years ago.
10 years ago? Yeah. Thank you.
If I remember right.
Some of it is just reshaping it so it drains properly, and then at the same time it allows for them to do what they need to do prior to their events.
So then do we have it on our 10-year capital plan to do again?
I haven't identified it in there yet.
Okay.
So what are we doing with that? Anybody?
It's in our agreement with
Go stay in it, yeah.
We're gonna have events down there.
I'm committed to that one.
Yeah.
7801, football, soccer field, and running track. Where did this one come from? Where is this?
Well, we had discussed this at the service level, and it was one of those that council, I think at that time, determined whether we keep it in or not. We've left it in there. It would be totally grant dependent.
Oh, lighting, sorry, I missed the lighting.
This is the lighting.
Yeah.
Oh, lighting.
How many more soccer fields do we need?
I totally missed.
I missed that too. I was like, wow.
And it's grant dependent, so I think, like, why not leave it in depending on grants? And if this town wants to be a place that actually hosts events, that would be ideal to have that. And then the town could, like, not maybe town, but businesses, hotels, etc. There'd be a spin-off by being able to host events properly. Because right now, we're not really the host of events.
Do we know how much the lighting will cost to operate per year? We're just curious.
I don't have a cost estimate on that at this point.
Do we have any idea how much lighting would cost?
I would suggest it's cheaper now with LED systems available.
Could we put solar panels? Yes. And then that wouldn't cost anything to run.
I think a lot depends on what kind of lighting is being used as to how much power it's going to take.
There are some previous estimates on that, I think, that was brought forward by Mr. Slomicki.
Okay.
But we can research that and bring it back to council for operating costs. It's also on school property. This is school property, so power to the school.
Oh, okay. Sure. You think they'd be okay with that?
That would be a discussion.
Okay. Councilor Phillips?
Yeah, I mean, this one being grant dependent, if the grant gets approved, then that changes the whole topic of discussion. And right now, with no grant approval, I would like to see it stay in, depending on grant approval, for sure.
I believe this project was in a previous budget and it had been approved, and then the grant didn't go through, so it got pulled off the table.
Yeah, it was.
The next round of grant submissions is January.
Councilor Alderson?
Yeah, I have a question that's within your field here, but a little off topic from what we were just talking about. And just, we never know what's going forward with COVID restrictions and group sports. And has there been any thought towards, this happened before my time, but there used to be batting cages and stuff here. So it's not groups of people, they can do it individually, potentially even bring their own balls and stuff for that. Is that something that's ever been thought of?
I believe there is a batting cage at Ball Diamond facilities.
The one, right?
Yeah, I think so.
But not like the automatic kind that you're talking
No,
about.
well, yeah, it used to be a few of them, yeah. Anyhow, just a thought.
That gives me nightmares, those kinds of things.
Oh, it's so fun. Just you stand there and take.
Yeah. So what are we doing with 7801?
Move forward as it's grant dependent.
It's grant dependent, right?
Okay, we're all on the same page?
The next two for me were under the culture project. 8003 is replacement of the stage curtains at the new Soffit Center, and basically that's a fire code. They've surpassed their certifications. Correct. Quotes for $10,000 to replace those stage curtains.
And those are the black ones, right?
Yes.
Not the gold ones? Because the gold ones are, well, maybe not that new anymore.
No, I believe it may be those front ones.
Those front ones?
No, I think it would be the black ones.
Black ones?
I think it's the black ones.
Okay.
Either color.
But Wes is the expert, so
Yeah, I'm taking what my staff had sort of brought to me, and I guess I didn't ask the question front or back, which one they were.
Just because I know Northern Crossing bought the gold ones, so, but that might be 10 years ago. I don't know what the fire rating is now, so.
I can send a quick text and get an answer for you.
Yeah,
Councilor Brown?
do the curtains actually have a life expectancy?
They've got a tag right on there that gives them their certification date, and so.
Okay, and how long is that? Sorry.
I think it's 10 years.
Okay, so yeah, I'm thinking it's the black ones.
Because they were due for checks.
What happens to the old stage curtains then? Like, it's not like they're faded.
I don't think they're brand new.
It's bizarre to me because they don't serve like a function as in something where they could fail. Like, that's so weird. Unless it's just the fire code standards, like you said, the
Just the
materials
coating
maybe.
that they put on to make it fire retardant over time.
That makes sense.
That makes sense. That makes the decision easier then.
Yeah, unfortunately, they may still look fine, and it's just the whole fire
I'm
rating.
still shaking. Sorry. Just
Shaking?
We're vibrating over here, yeah, like literally moving, I'm not sure what's going on.
Is there a party down?
I'm pretty sure it's my legs.
Shell bouncing up and down.
Okay,
Sorry.
it's okay. No, now that I know what it is, I just thought like we're gonna fall through the floor or something.
No, certainly.
Okay, so back to 80. So there's, obviously we need the stage curtains if we want curtains.
If we want events.
The projector and sound system. I cannot tell you how many functions I've been to at that community center where the system has failed. And they're crackling and so.
Just borrow the new council one.
Well, that's what I was gonna say though. Is there like a deal that could be had maybe with,
Maybe to
Like-
group the two
Yeah.
projects together.
yeah,
I think we'd be going through microwave for both, wouldn't we,
okay.
Potentially, yeah.
We got our quote from the company that did the sound baffles for us at the aquatic center. And actually, we have a couple of quotes.
Could we also check out micro-H as well then?
I think there'll be two quite different products in terms of what they're.
Yeah, the companies that would provide them would probably be able to do either or, depending on the needs, right? At this point,
I mean, we can certainly check with micro-H.
Councilor Fraser?
I know that we get contacted a lot for our light board and the sound board because it's different equipment. And I'm wondering if it would make sense, even if it was a portable sound and light booth that plugged in, that all the different groups are able to use. Because I know that we have to hang our lights and attach them to our light board every single year that we, and same with the sound's all individual. Whereas most places will have a sound booth and a light booth set up so that there isn't the crackling, there isn't the popping, there isn't the, 3 weeks of chasing down ghosts in the machine. And I know it can't stay there permanently because that room's used for other things. But if that would help groups, because I know we get called a lot to, like, can you come and set up your light board to run lights for the dance competition, or can you help us, like, hook up sound for our concert? I'm wondering if, because that is getting used, if that might be a plan that's workable for people, or lots of groups, not just one.
I think that would be part of the event price, would it not? Like if you're going to be hosting a concert in there and you need lights, you'd have to bring in your own lights. Is that, am I hearing you right?
Well, usually if you rent a theater space, like if I went to Red Deer and I said I want to rent the downtown theater, there's sound and light equipment there, and usually your rental fee in that specific case covers the tech to run it. But most places that you'd rent would have sound and light equipment there.
So just for clarification, Councilor Fraser, so the places you would rent in Red Deer, for example, do they use their facility for other things, such as we would?
Well, the theater one does use it for, I know the dance group has been there and they had their theater program running through there, so they do use it for multiple things. I don't think having a permanent sound and light booth makes sense in that room because you were using it for weddings and stuff. But thinking about, having kind of a universal setup with a board that the people who run the building have an idea of how to use it and how to troubleshoot it, that groups can plug in and they aren't screwing stuff to the ceiling and they aren't plugging the wrong things in. I just think it might smooth out the process and you'd need less setup and takedown time. So you could probably get more events in there.
I think it makes sense if we're going to upgrade it is to take into consideration the other users and how they can plug into the sound system itself.
I think that's both good points, and I think that's important because now we're renting the center out more times than not without staff. And it was staff that people used to go to try and resolve some of the issues. For the other events, not so much for Northern Crossing.
Of course.
And that would probably be part of the orientation when somebody rents, if they need the sound system, having their orientation of how to utilize the system.
I'm slightly confused now. What are we doing? We're leaving the projector sound system in, or I'm hearing, are we looking at expanding it? I don't know that this...
I think within the scope of the dollars we have, we can accommodate.
Yeah, I agree.
So we have the conversation with the theater group to say, okay, here's what we're doing,
Well, and there might be additional funding and grants. You'd have to talk to them, but there might be grants.
So we're leaving this in? Is that...
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
No, it's not good at all.
It never has been.
No.
And they've done great with that sound system, so we can't wait.
Yeah.
We have our own.
Okay.
It's just so awkward being, especially at a memorial service there, and they can't get the PowerPoint to operate. It's just, yeah, so this is good. This is really good. Okay.
So that brings us to the end of our capital projects.
Wow. How many do we next?
8,004.
Yeah. Okay. Capital wrap-up discussion.
So we've been through the operating and the capital, talked about the debt, the 10-year plan, so I guess really it's council looking and obtaining consensus that you're happy with the budget, the changes, we're taking $600 out of council. In the capital, we'll remove that general from the protective services. The bronze statue will come out, and I guess with the lagoon, we'll look at whether we need to put in 20% from the county on those. And the dressing room expansion come out.
It's going to be, we'll have to fund it.
Okay, so there's a change there. And then we can bring it back for Tuesday night for council. We'll just bring a high-level budget. We'll bring a, one-page operating, and we'll redo the capital list so that you can see what's included in there. But we can have a summary brought back for council on December 8th for approval.
Good. Councillor Phillips?
Yeah, this has been the simplest budget presentation yet. Thank you guys. All the men, it's done such a tremendous job to make this happen. Thank you for a process that's easy to follow, easy for the public to follow as well. Great job. Fantastic.
Thank you. Our pleasure, right?
Yeah, I identified that yesterday, that this has been the easiest budget process I think I've ever seen, and it's been pretty seamless.
And working with the staff at Questica has really streamlined it for us. The directors have been really willing to embrace it, and some of the managers, they're in there, so it's able to cross the whole breadth of the organization, so it's working well.
And that's obvious with this budget, so thanks to everybody for the hard work that's gone into this, and we appreciate it. We all appreciate it.
I need to talk to you.
Oh, I can't.
Sorry, clarification to Councillor Fraser's, it is the black curtains.
Okay. That makes sense, because those are very old, yeah.
The gold curtains will need to be addressed in the next couple of years.
Okay. All right. So that sounds good?
Yep.
Do we,
Anything else?
we could have our, I guess, council discussion overview of budget and or potential changes. We've already just done that. Dean, do you need us for anything, any emails or?
Yeah, I can just provide an update to council where we're at.
Okay.
A couple issues. So.
I guess we have lunch being ordered anyway, so can't waste that. So we may as well.
Should we shut down?
Yep. So, nobody has any other questions on the budget? We're all good? So then I will, is 11:24, adjourn the budget meeting. Or do you want me to?
A resolution to bring budget to December 8th meeting.
Wait, Councilor Phillips?
I'll make a motion that we bring the budget to the December 8th council meeting.
All in favor of that motion?
Will you update the pages in our binders then? We'll get new ones.
Yeah.
Are you going to do that course this afternoon?
Okay, it's still 11:24 and I'm adjourning the budget meeting.
I'll see you there, Riley.
I'm going
Shit,